Hi, it's Katrina. Number 10. The Lasso Titanatrox. 66 million years ago, there was a predator that prowled the oceans around what is today Morocco. At the end of the Cretaceous period, just before the dinosaurs went extinct, the mosasaur was one of the most frightening creatures on the planet. This particular species, called the Lasso Titanatrox, grew to be an astounding 33 feet long. It was so big that it likely fed on other marine reptiles, including members of its own family. Its name translates to merciless sea giant. Researchers recently discovered proof of this real-world sea monster in western Morocco, not far from Casablanca. Scientists found fossilized skulls, several jaws, and a handful of other remains that they used to identify the animal. What really shocked them was that the teeth they found were almost always chipped or broken, suggesting very violent attacks on behalf of the mosasaur. It must have been biting its victims so hard that it pierced their bones and broke off shards of its teeth. Right before the asteroid hit, there was serious diversity all across the planet. Discoveries from Morocco prove that before the dinosaurs died, the Lasso Titanatrox was everywhere. The ocean was teeming with very real monsters that most people will be glad aren't around anymore. To get a good idea of what a mosasaur looked like, picture a shark the size of a whale and mixed with a lizard and a snake. The very largest of them all was a specimen found in Russia, estimated to be 56 feet in length. Number 9. Mauisaurus. One of the largest carnivorous marine reptiles that ever lived was the Plesiosaur. There were a lot of different kinds, the same way there are lots of different kinds of sharks. They came into existence about 245 million years ago and thrived in the world's oceans up until 65 million years ago. When the asteroid killed the dinosaurs, it also killed many of the giant marine reptiles. The first plesiosaur skeleton was described by William Stukeley in 1719. Mary Anning then became the first person to find an almost complete plesiosaur in the 19th century in England. Since then, scientists have been very busy collecting countless plesiosaur specimens. One of the most frightening of all the plesiosaurs was the Mauisaurus. It lived between 80 and 69 million years ago and may have been the largest marine reptile in its region. It lurked along the coastlines of New Zealand at a whopping 26 feet long. The Mauisaurus also had one of the longest necks of any plesiosaur, with an astounding 68 cervical vertebrae. It was basically the Loch Ness Monster, only real, with huge flippers and a slender body to give it flexible movement. It could swim at extraordinarily high speeds, allowing it to easily hunt its favorite food, like fish and squid. Do you think the Loch Ness Monster could have been a plesiosaur? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Number 8. Comsigmathus. During the late Jurassic period, about 150 million years ago, there was a terrifying creature about the size of a turkey. It lived throughout Germany and France, and it only stood about 3 feet tall. Yet it was an absolute menace. It was a small bipedal dinosaur that ran around on its 2 legs and feasted on every meaty animal it could find. But how could such a short animal be so scary? Well, a single Comsigmathus wouldn't be a very big deal. You could most likely fend one off with a shovel or a few well-placed kicks. But these things hunted in packs. Not small packs either, but huge gangs of starving lizards that would literally eat you alive. Packs of the Comsigmathus may have been able to take on animals significantly larger, in the same way packs of wolves can take down a much bigger beast, like a buffalo. On the other hand, there's no way of knowing for sure. These small dinosaurs may have feasted primarily on bugs and little lizards. For a long time, the Comsigmathus was even considered the smallest avian dinosaur that ever lived. But then, the Microraptor and the Mahakala were discovered to be even tinier. If these things were still alive today, no doubt they would be terrorizing the neighborhood. Number 7. Apatosaurus. The Apatosaurus, or deceptive lizard, was positively huge. It was first identified based on an incomplete set of juvenile bones in 1877. All these years later, there are still only 2 Apatosaurus specimens. But even with only 2 specimens, we can see just how monstrous this giant dinosaur was. It lived between 155 and 150 million years ago and was one of the largest land animals to ever walk the earth. It may have reached a shocking length of 74 feet, weighing 39 tons. This thing was so big, it could have swung its tail and knocked down an entire neighborhood. It would have squished you, your car, and your house under one of its massive feet. In today's modern world, there is not enough space for the Apatosaurus to roam free. The dinosaur, which was a type of sauropod, was so big it could have trampled a whole herd of elephants. There would be nowhere to put a herd of these long-necked dinosaurs on today's planet. And even though they were giants, it's believed they weren't necessarily aggressive or purposely destructive. It's just that they were huge, so big that they couldn't help but cause damage wherever they went. In 1997, a computer model detailed how the tail of the Apatosaurus could produce a boom like a cannon shot, like the crack of a whip that could be heard for miles around. And now for number 6. But first, I want to give a big shout out to Ubaldo Myers and William Davis. Thanks so much for watching and supporting Origins Explained. If you are new here, be sure to subscribe and join the family, because why not? Number 6. Gastosaurus. The Gastosaurus was a flightless bird that lived about 55 million years ago during what scientists call the Paleogene period. We know of the creature's existence because fossils of it have been found in Europe, Asia, and North America. These huge flightless birds lived pretty much everywhere, but they were far more terrifying than the flightless birds we have today. Alive right now are birds like penguins, ostriches, and emus. And while emus are most certainly terrifying, they were nothing compared to the Gastosaurus. The Gastosaurus could grow 6 feet tall and weigh several hundred pounds. But what made them so scary was their heads. They had huge noggins, with even larger beaks that gave them an incredibly menacing appearance. Their beaks were almost like pointy sledgehammers, so hard they could have used them for cracking open skulls like walnuts. The closest thing you could compare a Gastosaurus to would be New Zealand's moa, the flightless bird that went extinct about 600 years ago. The moa could grow almost 7 feet tall and weighed upwards of 340 pounds. It's believed humans hunted them to extinction because they were so dangerous. The moa was one of the last dinosaur-like birds to exist on our planet, and they were even worse than the Gastosaurus. The truth is that the planet has been plagued by monstrous birds for millions of years. We are currently living in a rare time in which birds aren't actively hunting us. But even though most birds throughout history have been ruthless carnivores, scientists think the Gastosaurus may have been an herbivore. Instead of using its thick beak for cracking skulls, it might have used it to gather plant material and seeds. Which do you think? Let me know in the comments. Number 5. Thylacosmolis. The Thylacosmolis atrox was a marsupial that lived in South America between 9 and 3 million years ago. And although it was a marsupial, it was more similar to the saber-toothed tigers of North America than any marsupials we have on Earth today. It had huge canines that continued to grow, which originally led paleontologists to think it was a saber-toothed cat. When scientists first started looking over the fossilized remains, they were shocked by its size. The Thylacosmolis was only about half as big as the Smilodon fatalis, aka the saber-toothed tiger. To compare the Thylacosmolis to something still alive, it was about the same size as a jaguar. With more research, it soon became clear the ancient marsupial was entirely unlike Ice Age cats. Professor Christine Janis from the University of Bristol says the Thylacosmolis lacked incisors, which cats use to scrape meat from bone. Its canines were also quite different from Ice Age cat canines, and were more triangular, like a claw. Scientists believe the Thylacosmolis had an extremely weak bite. Even though the marsupial was just as dangerous as a starving jaguar, it may have primarily been a scavenger. Researchers have suggested it only used its huge canines to open a carcass and then slurped out the insides with its giant tongue. They have compared its eating habits to animals like walruses and anteaters, not big cats. Number 4. Celophysis. The Celophysis lived somewhere between 228 and 200 million years ago during the late Triassic. It was a North American dinosaur that feasted only on meat, standing almost 7 feet tall and weighing nearly nothing at 50 pounds. This dinosaur was larger than most people, yet it only weighed about as much as a medium-sized dog. It was aerodynamic, slender, and its bones were extremely light. For this reason, the Celophysis had incredible speed. It was able to zip through prehistoric jungles as it hunted for its next meal. Just because the dinosaur was thin and gangly didn't mean it couldn't hunt. It was still a predatory dinosaur, one that most likely feasted on early relatives of mammals and anything smaller than itself. Its jaws were equipped with rows of sharp teeth for slicing and slashing. If a predator like this still existed today in the wild, it would be enough to keep most people indoors. There is no way a human being would ever be able to outrun such an agile dinosaur. Number 3. Antelodont. There was once a pig that lived on the planet, but looked like it came straight from hell. The terrifying piglets were so awful that even scientists have referred to them as hell pigs. Officially, the animals are called Antelodonts, and were not technically pigs, but they were pig-like abominations that wandered across North America and Eurasia until 18 million years ago. Antelodonts could be found in the forests and in the plains, roaming in massive herds and most likely making such loud noises they could be heard from miles away. Antelodonts had long snouts, thin legs, and stood nearly 7 feet tall at the shoulder. That would make the Antelodont taller than most horses, yet just as ferocious as a wild boar. The species that terrorized North America is called Archeopteryx, and its main stomping ground was the great state of Texas. They moved in to dominate the region about 35 million years ago. But just what made the Antelodonts so ugly? First of all, they had a lot of teeth. They didn't have flat pig teeth, but teeth more like saber-toothed cats. They also had a hump on their back, kind of like a bison, which scientists say was necessary for them to lift up their heavy heads. Researchers also believe the Antelodonts could open their mouths at a 150-degree angle, just like hippos do. In all likelihood, they were extremely aggressive. And just like modern pigs, they were omnivore scavengers. They would hunt, scavenge, and do whatever they needed to get a meal. Considering how dangerous herds of wild pigs are these days, just imagine how much trouble herds of wild Antelodonts could cause for modern society. What do you think is scarier, a giant bird or a wild boar? Let me know in the comments. Number 2. Ginsu Shark. The Ginsu Shark was one of the most frightening sharks that ever swam the world's oceans. The animal's scientific name is different and harder to pronounce, but it was named Ginsu after the kitchen knife for how sharp and dangerous its teeth were. The Ginsu Shark had a mouthful of teeth so sharp they could slice through bone. According to National Geographic, evidence has shown that the Ginsu Shark was above even the most fearsome apex predators of the prehistoric age. Prior to the extinction of the dinosaurs, the Ginsu Shark hunted everything it could get its teeth on. That included massive marine reptiles like mosasaurs and plesiosaurs, two of the most legendary sea monsters to ever exist. But no matter how fearsome of a marine predator you were, there was no standing up against the Ginsu Shark. What few calcified remains scientists have found suggest the shark grew at least 24 feet long. They were surprisingly similar to the modern great white shark, but the Ginsu Shark was prehistoric and brutal, with 2-inch-long teeth. The only animal we know about that preyed upon this shark was a particular type of mosasaur called Thylacosmolis. The Thylacosmolis was a giant mosasaur, over 50 feet long. Number 1. Archeopteryx. The Archeopteryx was a transitional dinosaur, a blend of avian and reptilian characteristics. It was a cross between a dinosaur and a modern bird, sharing features from both kinds of animals. But for a long time, researchers only thought it was a bird. Its fossil was discovered in Germany, and German paleontologists nicknamed it Birdvogel, which means first bird. These days, we know exactly what kind of animal the Archeopteryx was: a terrifying flying predator. It lived about 150 million years ago in Bavaria, at a time when Europe was an archipelago. The animal wasn't very big, only weighing about 2 pounds. It was no larger than a raven and had wings with strange rounded ends. It also had a huge tail nearly as long as its body. Based on this description, the archeopteryx sounds a lot like a bird. It was the same size, it had feathers and plumage, and it had aerodynamic abilities. However, nobody knows if it could physically fly. It may have been a glider, leaping between trees and using its wings to glide. The archeopteryx is the oldest flying member of any avian family on record, but it was also part dinosaur. It had killing claws that it could use to tear its prey apart. It also had jaws complete with sharp teeth like little knives for being an active predator. Try to imagine a bird the size of a crow, except with much larger wings, sharper claws, and teeth. It's a good thing this monstrosity isn't around today. Just imagine 30 or 40 of them loitering on the telephone lines outside your house. Thanks for watching! Would you rather be in the water with a great white or the prehistoric Ginsu shark? Let me know in the comments below. Remember to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Bye!